Hello and welcome to Chrome Computing. In this video we will be looking at display resolution and what you need to look for when buying a Chromebook. If you're buying a mid-range Chromebook or a high-spec Chromebook, you may be looking or you may be tempted to buy a Chromebook with a higher than Full HD resolution. Now this is perfectly fine to do, but you need to consider how practical it is. I've got a Pixel Slate and the display resolution on that is 3000 by 2000, so that's a huge resolution, and the display is fantastic, but that's not just about the resolution, that's about the molecular display that Google used, because the depth and there's just no reflection on the display. It's really good. So although yes, the resolution makes a difference, it's also the panel that really makes a difference to how good the display is. Now if I'm using my Pixel Slate and I'm surfing the internet, I could use it for about 10 minutes max at the full resolution of 3000 by 2000, and the reason for that is because the text is just far too small to read. So it's something you need to consider. Although they may look good, how practical are they? Now I'm not saying that I love my Pixel Slate because the display is fantastic, but if you're looking to buy a Chromebook and you're using it mainly to surf the web, then going over Full HD may be too much. I've recently brought the Acer 713 Chromebook, and that display is higher than Full HD, but it's done really well compared to the aspect ratio and the resolution. Although it's higher, it's not as high as the Pixel Slate at 3000 by 2000, for example, so it still looks really good. But at the same time, a resolution of Full HD 1920 by 1080p on a 14-inch display is also really good as well. You don't really need much more. So if you're looking to buy a Chromebook, don't think that if you see Chromebooks with a really high resolution, that means that's the one you need to get. Yes, of course, they'll look great, but you've got to think about how practical they are in using it for everyday use. Everyday use for a Chromebook, when you consider it's a 14-inch display, Full HD is perfectly fine. The Acer 713, like I said, it's got a high resolution, but that also looks perfectly fine. When you get to the Pixel Slate resolution of 3000 by 2000, yes, it looks fantastic, but it's really hard to read that text because it's so small for any longer than, well, for me, for about 10 minutes. And then I'm having to press the Control, the Shift and the plus key, which then lowers the resolution, and I can see the text is bigger. But then you think, well, if you're doing that, what's the point? So although it's really tempting to get a Chromebook with a really high resolution, I would not recommend to do it if the cost of the Chromebook is really expensive, because is it really worth it? For the Pixel Slate, it's fine because it's a tablet as well, and tablets are known to have quite high resolutions. And for my Acer 713, it's fine. But bearing in mind, the Acer 713, even though it's got a higher than Full HD resolution, only costs £599 or $699. So it's a relatively cheap Chromebook for what you're getting. I think where I'm really coming from is with the Samsung Galaxy, for example, that they come out. Although it's a great Chromebook, that resolution was quite high and it did have an impact on battery life as well. So really it's about considering that, and also for 4K display Chromebooks. If you really want an amazing display, then go for it, but you've got to consider that price is so much more expensive than a display with Full HD. And I think you can get caught into the trap of thinking, yes, I want the best specs, but when you look at the size, 14-inch, it doesn't need more than Full HD to look great. If you had a display, for example, a 32-inch display for a Chromebook, then yeah, getting a full 4K display is going to be great for that. But you've got to look at the size of the display and whether you need to go crazy. So what I'm trying to really put across here is I don't think you need to be looking at considering buying any Chromebook with a 4K display. And I'm sure in the future, because Chromebooks have taken off really well, which is great news, I'm sure in the future manufacturers will start looking at what else they can offer you. I would be very cautious about spending a fortune on a Chromebook, just because one of the main benefits is over a cheaper Chromebook is that it's got a 4K display. Like I said, I think in real terms, when you come to using to surf the internet, you'll be quite disappointed at the fact it would be very hard to read and you would have to use the Control Shift and Plus to lower the resolution so the display is bigger. So it's just about not wasting your money really. If you've got loads of money to spend, fine, but even if you do, for example, like the Pixel Slate, which I've spent money on, which I got pretty cheap anyway because they're much cheaper nowadays, but even that, yes, it looks great, but I don't use that resolution. You've got to think about, is it worth buying something and spending so much money on something if you're not actually going to use the specs? Processing, yes, of course, in the future. Now Linux apps is out of beta. I'm sure we'll see new apps come out where you will use that processing power. So that's the sort of thing you want to really put more attention into, and the RAM as well, and the storage is going to be a big thing on Chromebooks in the future, because it already Android apps obviously, and with Linux apps, with the more Linux apps we get and the more programs you can store locally, then you will need more storage. So they're the things I'd consider: SSD storage, for example, lots of RAM, a good processor over a 4K display. It's not knocking anyone who's got a 4K display Chromebook, of course. If you've got one, fantastic, and I'm sure you really enjoy using it. It's just for people who have not yet gone out there and bought a Chromebook. The last thing I think you need to consider is, I need something with more than full HD, because you don't. Full HD display on a 14-inch Chromebook, or even a 15-inch Chromebook, 15.6-inch Chromebook is absolutely fine. If the display is slightly higher, for example, on the Acer 713, it works really well, it's fine. But it's just when it gets to that crazy resolution, such as the Pixel Slate 3000, 2000, although I love it, can I use it to surf the web on a daily basis? No, and that's what really you need to consider. Okay, so I hope this video has helped. If it did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for future videos, and thanks for watching.